earthquake there in more than 100 years. Then the Vances visit Greenland in the face of pushback. How far President Trump now says he'll go to gain control of the territory. Then a spending slump continues. The latest look at inflation and the direction it's going as Americans hold back on shopping. This is the National News Desk, America's News. Now, I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thank you for joining us on your Friday. And we begin tonight with the horrifying images out of Myanmar, where a 7.7 magnitude earthquake rocked the city of Mandalay, killing at least 150 people. As you see right here behind me at the multiple buildings that have collapsed, as well as a 90-year-old bridge, more than 700 people injured. And authorities believe both of those numbers will only go up. Now, this earthquake was also felt in Bangkok, Thailand. At least 10 people died when a skyscraper under construction collapsed. Just look at this terrifying scene. At least 10 people, they died when that skyscraper collapsed, and you can see it, or you just saw it coming down. 6 more were hospitalized. Right now, as many as 101 people are still missing. Eerie new images showing pool water pouring over the sides of this high rise. We are told the building is designed to do this as the water on the roof rocks back and forth. It stabilizes the building, allowing it to better absorb the quake. More video from the top of the highest place in Myanmar. You can see the water thrash around out of the pool and over the sides of the building. There's already been 6.5 magnitude aftershocks in Myanmar, and more are expected to come. Stay with us as we continue to track the developments on this story throughout the night. We'll have coverage for you both on air and online at thenationaldesk.com. Our National News Desk radar now showing severe thunderstorms crawling over the south from Houston, Texas into Louisiana. Tornado watches are in effect for the region until at least 7 p.m. Central tonight. The heavy rain is also bringing flood watches to the southern parts of Louisiana until tomorrow afternoon. This, as we learn, at least 3 people have died in Texas from severe flooding near the Mexico border this week. This video from the city of Hidalgo yesterday. Widespread storms are expected to cross the Central Plains tomorrow, bringing hail threats to Oklahoma and Missouri. On Sunday, though, more than 108 million people are at risk of severe thunderstorm threats. This impacting more than 25 million in orange from Arkansas to Ohio, where large hail and strong tornadoes are expected. President Donald Trump spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney this morning, just one day after Carney called the United States as an unreliable partner. Trump gave an update on their talks on his Truth Social account. He called the conversation productive and said the two will meet after Canada holds its upcoming election. President Trump says he believes that meeting will end up being great for both the U.S. and America. Looking ahead, the Action Network is arranging a global day of action against Tesla and Elon Musk. More than 200 demonstrations across the U.S., Europe, and in Australia. They are calling for a Tesla takedown movement. They're urging people to sell their cars, dump their stock, and hit the streets in peaceful protest against Musk. It comes as Paul Kim, the 4th person arrested for violent vandalism against Tesla businesses across the country, was in court today for a detention hearing in Vegas. He's now facing federal and state charges of arson and possession of explosive devices, among other counts. Elon Musk spoke with Bret Baier on Fox News last night and addressed the ongoing threats.
They're threatening people. They're issuing death threats against me and other Tesla personnel. What's happening, it seems to me, is they're being fed propaganda by the far left. And they believe it. It's not like the crazy guy that firebombs a Tesla dealership. It's the people pushing the propaganda that caused that guy to do it.
A federal judge in New Jersey is considering arguments he heard today over where Columbia student Mahmoud Khalil's deportation case should be heard. Hundreds of protesters showed up at the courtroom today in support of Khalil. His lawyers want the case heard in New Jersey, where he was previously detained, while the DOJ wants it heard in Louisiana, where he's now in custody. A non-citizen who protested against Israel, Khalil, was arrested on March 8th. The judge said he'd issue a ruling soon. The Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to let officials continue deporting Venezuelan migrants believed to be gang members. The administration argues they have this authority under the Alien Enemies Act. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg temporarily blocked the deportations, ruling that the migrants should have an opportunity to defend their cases. The administration's efforts to increase immigration law enforcement are impacting some communities in unexpected ways. Restaurant owners in one Rhode Island city say they've seen a decline in sales because of recent immigration rulings.
Sometimes it works so well, and then other times it'll just not work.
Uva Juarez with Black Lives Matter Political Action Committee Rhode Island is putting up decorations in front of La Fruta Loca on Dexter Street in Central Falls. It's one of 3 organizations partnering for Support Central Falls Restaurant Night.
Support Central Falls Night is an event supporting the businesses in Central Falls, specifically the restaurants, which have seen a decline in sales and customers since recent immigration rulings. A lot of people are in fear, staying home, and they are not coming out to the restaurants anymore. So that is the main reason why they've seen a decline.
So they're hoping this united front will bring people to Central Falls restaurants.
It sucks to see, our people in fear.
La Fruta Loca is a fruit and snack shop favorite, known for tasty treats like this La Piña Loca and the house special El Bato. It started with Jacqueline Cano's mother, expanding through Cano and her sisters. Cano says Central Falls has changed.
People stopping by, chatting, walking around, their kids are out, and it's not like that anymore.
And fear has taken over.
I think we see it on the news a lot, and we actually had an incident happen here that people came in running. They were terrified that they had seen something at a gas station near us.
But with an event like this, they're hoping to change that.
The measles outbreak in Texas continues to grow. At least 73 cases have been reported in just the last 3 days, taking the state total up to 400 for this year. Across the U.S. now, there are 483 known cases in 19 states. The case count is now the most the country has recorded in 1 year since 2019, when nearly 1,300 people contracted the disease. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the Trump administration will start letting states ban people from using federal food assistance to buy soda. The secretary announced this today in West Virginia with Governor Patrick Morrisey, who signed a food dye ban this week.
The real battle is that we're getting sicker and sicker every year. And it's really just a debate about who's going to pay the treatment. Nobody has been focused on how do we get ourselves less sick.
RFK is eliminating 10,000 HHS jobs to improve efficiency, but some experts worry it could hurt his goal of making food healthier. The department says it's aiming to combine 5 existing divisions. Utah is now the first state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. A new law makes it illegal to add the mineral to public water systems. Utah's governor said he hasn't seen drastically different outcomes in residents who already don't have fluoridated water. Scientists say fluoride can help prevent cavities, but it's also been linked to health problems. Utah's ban goes into effect May 7th. New tonight, the Vice President and Second Lady visiting Greenland today as President Trump doubles down on his calls for the United States to take control of the Danish territory. The National News Desk, Atra El-Nashar, reports on why this is a trip America's allies and adversaries are watching closely.
Vice President J.D. Vance and Second Lady Usha Vance arriving at Patuxent Space Base in Greenland Friday afternoon for a visit that was originally planned to be a solo visit for the Second Lady.
I'm particularly thrilled to visit during our national dog sled race. I'm also coming to celebrate the long history of mutual respect and cooperation between our nations.
This triggered immediate backlash from many Greenlanders.
I wish the U.S. would stay away.
Including a local business that revoked an invitation to host the Second Lady, saying in a translated statement, Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders.
We have to have Greenland. And I think Denmark understands it. I think the European Union understands it. And if they don't, we're going to have to explain it to them.
Not only has Greenland made it clear it doesn't want to be part of the U.S., it's already seeking gradual independence from Denmark. Joining the vice president in Greenland are Energy Secretary Chris Wright and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, illustrating two of the reasons President Trump has his sights set on a possible annexation of Greenland, its natural resources and its strategic position in the Arctic. Currently, 8 countries have territory in the Arctic. Russia has by far the most. The U.S. just has Alaska, so Greenland would more than double America's Arctic presence.
If we don't have Greenland, we can't have great international security.
While China essentially has a global monopoly on rare earth minerals, Greenland has dozens of minerals the U.S. considers critical to national security. Many in Washington have doubts about whether the president is serious. Republicans in Congress have not rallied around the issue. But Russian President Vladimir Putin is taking Trump at his word.
It would be a grave mistake to believe that these are just some eccentric talk of new American administration. Nothing of the kind.
As for acting on his words, President Trump says this.
I think we'll go as far as we have to go. We need Greenland.
In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Coming up, the progress firefighters are making on the destructive wildfires burning across the western Carolinas. Then, the creative way a pediatric nurse in Rhode Island brightens the days of his emergency room patients. Then later, the truth about homeowners insurance that most people are surprised to find out. We'll be right back. Multiple fires right now across several counties in both North and South Carolina. The Table Rock Complex fire has grown significantly, aided by strong wind gusts, dry conditions, and debris from Hurricane Helene. Aerial crews are helping with containment by dropping flame retardant from above. And Americans are still being cautious with their spending as inflation remains escalated. A Commerce Department report shows the annual inflation rate was 2.5% in February, the same as January. But core prices are rising a little faster. The figures are above the Federal Reserve's target of 2%, calling into question when we may see another interest rate cut. And new developments, the search for a missing U.S. Army soldier continues in Lithuania tonight. The Army said a special Navy dive crew is getting there by tomorrow to help with what has become a recovery mission, according to the Lithuanian defense minister. The soldiers disappeared during training on Tuesday. Their armored vehicle was found submerged in mud and water yesterday. A new battle brewing in Lebanon. The IDF has now struck Hezbollah targets inside Beirut for the first time in 4 months. The Israel-Hezbollah war paused on November 27th of the last year, but cross-border firings in both directions have continued. Israel also warned the country of Lebanon that if they did not move to disarm Hezbollah fully, Israel will. Meantime, in Gaza, while Israel has also begun new military operations to remove Hamas from power, they also seek the remaining hostages being held. Tonight, there is a growing discontent among the residents in Gaza against the militant leaders. National correspondent Kelly Gaskin spoke with a protester in Gaza to understand why the protests are breaking out now.
Thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have had enough of Hamas. Taking to the streets of the war-torn enclave this week by the thousands for rare public protests demanding an end to the terrorist group's rule after 17 months of war with Israel and an estimated 50,000 deaths. One of these protesters spoke to us from Gaza this week. His face is blurred for security and he's using the pseudonym Khaled to protect his identity. A translator facilitated the interview.
Hamas has said these demonstrations are actually aimed at Israel, not at Hamas. Is that the case?
He's saying that this is a lie. Hamas is lying and trying to change the realities and to change the purpose of the current protests in Gaza. The reality of the protests is to oust Hamas. People are asking for Hamas to step down, and Gaza is not livable anymore.
Earlier this year, President Donald Trump suggested the U.S. take over and rebuild Gaza. Trump said his proposal would require moving all Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip. The comment sparking worldwide backlash.
Are you willing to leave Gaza? And if so, where would you like to go?
On the personal level, we would leave Gaza, so leaving Gaza would be an option for a lot of Gazans. But if there is reconstruction and there is food and there is the basic needs for life, a lot of people would rather stay in Gaza.
Would he like to see Trump's plan for the U.S. to go in and take over and rebuild Gaza?
He's saying absolutely.
The new proposal from the U.S. hinges on the release of American hostage Eden Alexander in exchange for a statement from President Trump calling for calm in Gaza and a return to broader ceasefire negotiations between Hamas and Israel. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins, reporting for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
In Europe, Russian President Vladimir Putin claims that Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky lacks the legitimacy to sign a peace deal. He proposes putting Ukraine under a UN-sponsored external government to reach an elusive ceasefire. Ukrainian officials dismiss Putin's proposal and say their counteroffer is for Russia to be placed under UN governance. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America, but we start in Oregon, where food banks are feeling the strain of budget cuts.
Sharp cuts to Oregon food banks. Right now, food banks here in the state are facing at least $7 million in cuts. The Oregon Food Bank distributes food to 21 regional food banks in the state. Columbia Gorge Food Bank is one of those. Officials say these funding cuts are going to be difficult as families are already struggling to put food on the table.
This freeze is going to mean less food is going into the community.
Right now, details about the reason for the funding cuts are limited. But Oregon Food Bank officials tell me they were alerted from their partners at Feeding America and that this decision is part of the federal administration's recent decision-making.
Waffle House has been a regular dine-out spot for friends Mitchell Gresley and Kai Eccles.
One of my friends reached across the table to take a bite out of my partner's hash browns.
I took a bite of his hash browns and bit into something that I thought was gristle, but not gristle.
He says he spit out whatever it was and then took a picture, they say out of disbelief.
It was a tooth. A human tooth.
It was said that the region manager made sure that none of her staff was missing any teeth, and so if it wasn't from the restaurant, potentially could have came from the distribution center.
Waffle House wouldn't tell me much yet, but shared a statement that it's aware of the alleged customer complaint and it's looking into it.
For children and families visiting Hasbro Children's Hospital, The setting is something child life specialist Mallory Kropman says might cause some concern.
A lot of kids come in immediately.
But it's thanks to people in this place like Mike Jardina, who helps to make what could be a dark situation a little bit brighter.
Some kids are like scared, some aren't. I introduced play with them in order to get like an assessment or, so sort of like a positive experience like as they first walk through the door.
Introducing play typically requires a toy, which is why for years the pediatric nurse spends hours at home customizing and creating 3D ones, which he then brings here to the hospital and hands them out to children he treats in triage.
I like that I get to take care of people at their worst moment and kind of make some sort of difference.
Coming up, the fine print you don't want to miss when insuring your home against natural disasters. We'll be right back. When disaster strikes, many homeowners don't realize they probably don't have enough insurance to cover all their losses. It's proving to be a major problem for those impacted by the California wildfires and hurricanes in the southeast. And a Spotlight on America national investigative correspondent Angie Moreski discovered it could be a problem for you, too.
The water started coming in the house.
These folks near Asheville, North Carolina, faced unprecedented flooding when Hurricane Helene hit their area last September.
We got out on our roof.
Many homes left 25 feet underwater.
My mother was trapped in the house. There was no way to escape because the water got so high.
In January, they told President Trump harrowing stories of what they experienced then.
I didn't think I was going to make it, but we did make it out.
And now, as they try to recover.
No insurance on flood insurance, so we had to depend on FEMA. Of course, it's not enough.
Did you find most people didn't even realize they were underinsured?
Most people are surprised by this.
Emily Gallagher is an assistant professor of finance at the University of Colorado. She co-authored a recent study of victims from the 2021 Marshall wildfires near Denver and found 3 out of 4 homeowners were underinsured.
This almost impacted you.
Yeah, my family packed up, got everything in the car. We were about to evacuate.
Luckily for her, the wind shifted and the fire turned away. But many of her friends lost their homes, driving her research to find out why so many didn't have enough insurance.
What we're finding is that homeowners seem to pay a lot of attention to premiums and less attention to coverage limits.
Nobody realizes they don't have enough coverage.
Doug Quinn learned that firsthand after his home was severely damaged by Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey back in 2012.
It was devastating. It changed the whole course of my life. It took me 7 years to get back home, and I was fully insured.
The traumatic experience led him to found the American Policyholder Association. Following the recent hurricanes in the southeast and wildfires in California, Quinn was on scene with his team helping victims, many just realizing they didn't have enough insurance.
It's a shock. People sort of have this belief that I have insurance, everything's going to be okay.
Unfortunately, insurance policies can be confusing, but it's critical to read it, understand what's covered, and make sure you check every year to see if anything's changed when you get that renewal notice.
It's not just the premium, which is the one thing everybody looks at. There could be exclusions from coverage. There could be a change in your coverage.
When setting your policy limit, estimate the replacement cost to rebuild and consider inflation on labor and supplies, which can drive up costs. Then compare the same coverage between carriers. Also, be aware to cover flooding, you need a separate policy. According to FEMA, 99% of counties nationwide have been impacted by flooding, but only about 5% of homeowners have flood insurance. A reality so many in North Carolina are just now discovering can have catastrophic consequences. For Spotlight on America, I'm Angie Moreski.
And for more information on understanding what your insurance policy covers and to estimate how much insurance you need to cover rebuilding your home, just head to spotlightinvestigates.com and click on this story. Coming up next, an update on the health of King Charles III over a year since we learned he had cancer. We'll be right back.